They say that in the digital age, privacy is a myth. We post our coffee, our pets, our bad days, and our wins. We think we're sharing with friends, but sometimes someone else is taking notes. They aren't just looking at your photos. They are studying you, learning your rhythm, waiting for the perfect moment to randomly match with you. This story was sent in by a girl named Sarah. And after hearing this, you might never look at a soulmate the same way again. It started with a swipe. His name was Mark. Tall, dark hair, and a smile that didn't look forced. But it wasn't his looks that caught Sarah. It was his bio. It was weirdly specific. He mentioned a love for 1940s jazz, a rare brand of Japanese stationery, and a very specific hiking trail in the Pacific Northwest that Sarah had visited only once 3 years ago. When they started texting, it was like looking in a mirror. Sarah would mention a movie, and Mark would quote his favorite line, the same line Sarah had tucked away in her heart. He knew her favorite obscure coffee order, an oat milk latte with exactly 1 pump of lavender. He even shared her exact fear of open water. Sarah felt that spark, that rare feeling that you finally found someone who just gets you. They met at a small, dimly lit bistro. Mark was even more charming in person. He was wearing a vintage watch, the exact model Sarah's father used to wear. Coincidence? Maybe. About an hour into the date, Sarah mentioned a secret, something she had never posted on Instagram. A small, embarrassing story from when she was 7 years old, involving a blue tricycle and a broken garden gnome. Mark laughed, but then he did something that made the hair on Sarah's neck stand up. He finished the story. "And let me guess," he said, leaning in. "The gnome's name was Barnaby?" Sarah froze. She had never, ever told anyone that name. Not even her best friend. She felt a cold shiver run down her spine, but Mark just smiled and took a sip of his wine. "I'm just a good guesser," he whispered. Halfway through dinner, Sarah excused herself to the restroom. She needed to splash cold water on her face. She felt like she was in a dream or a trap. On her way back to the table, she saw Mark. He didn't see her. He was leaning over his phone, his face illuminated by the harsh blue light. But he wasn't texting. Sarah slowed down, walking softly on the carpet. As she passed behind him, she glanced at his screen. It wasn't Tinder. It wasn't a text thread. It was a spreadsheet, a massive color-coded Excel file on his mobile browser. As her eyes adjusted, she saw her own name at the top. Sarah, Profile 04. Underneath were tabs, music preferences, childhood memories, family tree, past relationships, 2015 to 2023, favorites, coffee/colors/dogs. And there, highlighted in yellow, was a note from a blog Sarah had deleted 8 years ago. A blog she used to write under a pseudonym when she was a lonely teenager. The note read, "Gnome's name, Barnaby." Voiceover. He hadn't found a soulmate. He had found a target. He had spent months, maybe years, archiving her digital footprint. Every deleted post, every like on a random photo, every comment on a YouTube video. He had built a mask made out of her own life just to make her love him. Sarah didn't go back to the table. She didn't say goodbye. She walked straight out the front door, called an Uber, and blocked him before she even got home. But here's the part that still keeps her awake at 3 a.m. 2 days later, she received an anonymous email. No subject line, just one sentence. You forgot to update your LinkedIn. I see you just started a new job on Fifth Avenue. See you at lunch, Sarah. This story comes from Alex. Alex wasn't new to dating, but he was tired of the city. So when he matched with Chloe, a girl who loved hiking, photography, and spontaneous adventures, he thought he'd finally found someone refreshing. Chloe was beautiful in an effortless way. She suggested they catch the sunset at a secret spot about 2 hours outside the city. Alex, wanting to be the perfect date, agreed to let her drive. After all, she knew the way. But as the skyline faded in the rear view mirror, the conversation started to take a turn that Alex didn't notice until it was almost too late. As they drove deeper into the mountain roads, Chloe's personality seemed to shift with the light. She started asking Alex very specific questions, not about his hobbies, but about his family. "Does anyone know you're out here tonight?" she asked, her eyes fixed on the dark road. "Does your roommate expect you back by a certain time?" Alex laughed it off, thinking she was just being quirky. But then he noticed the interior of the car. It was sterile. No trash, no scent, no personal items. Except for one thing. In the side pocket of the door, Alex saw a pair of heavy-duty zip ties and a small bottle of industrial-grade bleach. His heart skipped a beat. He looked at his phone to text his best friend, Mike. He realized they had been driving for nearly 3 hours. He checked his battery, 14%. He had forgotten his charger in his own car. Alex quietly snapped a photo of the car's dashboard, specifically the registration sticker on the windshield, and sent it to Mike with a pinned location. "Hey, check this plate. Something feels off," he texted. Chloe noticed the flash. The car swerved slightly. "Who are you talking to, Alex?" Her voice was no longer sweet. It was flat, cold. "Just my mom." Alex lied, his hands sweating on his lap, telling her I'll be home late. Chloe didn't respond. She just sped up. The GPS on Alex's phone showed they were moving further into a dead zone, a place with no cell towers for miles. He watched his bars drop. 2 bars, 1 bar, searching. Then his phone buzzed. One last message from Mike. The image was loading slowly, a spinning circle of death. Alex's battery hit 4%. The message finally popped up. It was a screenshot of a news report from that morning. Vehicle theft and homicide. Police are looking for a silver SUV, plate number 4, XJ992. The owner, a 24-year-old woman, was found deceased in her home this morning. Suspect is at large and considered extremely dangerous. Alex looked at the plate number in the text. Then he looked at the sticker on the windshield. It was a match. The woman sitting next to him wasn't Chloe. Chloe was the girl who owned this car, the girl who was currently in a body bag. Alex felt the car slow down. They were in a clearing surrounded by nothing but ancient pines and pitch-black darkness. Chloe, or whoever she was, turned off the engine. She turned to him, a jagged, unnatural smile on her face. "We're here," she whispered. Alex gripped his phone. 1%. He tried to hit the emergency SOS button, but before his finger could touch the screen, the display went black. silence filled the car. What followed was a 20-minute game of cat and mouse in the freezing dark. Alex didn't fight. He ran. He sprinted into the woods, feeling the branches tear at his clothes and skin. Behind him, he could hear her. She wasn't screaming, she was humming. A soft, melodic tune that drifted through the trees. Every time he stopped to breathe, he heard her footsteps. Steady, patient. She knew these woods. He didn't. He found a hollow log and crawled inside, pressing his face into the dirt, praying his white sneakers wouldn't give him away. He watched her boots pass inches from his face. She stopped. She stood there for what felt like an hour. "I can hear your heart, Alex," she said into the darkness. "It's so loud." Alex didn't move until the sun started to bleed through the trees. He walked for 4 hours until he hit a main road and flagged down a trucker. When the police finally searched the secret spot, they found the SUV. It was empty. But inside the trunk, they found a starter kit for a new identity. Alex's stolen mail, a copy of his house key she must have swiped from his pocket during dinner, and a Polaroid camera with 10 photos in it. Every single photo was of Alex, taken from a distance, at the gym, at work, at his local grocery store. She hadn't matched with him by accident. She had been following him for weeks, waiting for him to invite her on a date. To this day, the woman known as Chloe has never been caught. And Alex? He never goes anywhere without a portable charger. And he never ever lets a stranger drive. They say your home is your castle. The one place where you can finally lock the world out and be yourself. But for Liam, a 28-year-old architect, his home became a stage for a nightmare he never saw coming. Liam had been seeing Maya for 3 weeks. She was intelligent, funny, and lived in a stunning minimalist penthouse on the 42nd floor of a new glass tower. It was the kind of place that felt too clean, too perfect. On their 4th date, Maya invited him over for dinner. Liam arrived with a bottle of expensive red wine, expecting a romantic evening. He didn't know he was walking into a gallery of secrets. The apartment was beautiful, but as the night went on, Liam began to notice things that didn't fit Maya's perfect lifestyle. First, it was the smell. Beneath the scent of expensive candles and home-cooked pasta, there was something else. Something sour, like old sweat and stale cigarette smoke. Maya was a fitness enthusiast who hated smoking. Then there were the sounds. High-rise buildings always creak, but these sounds were different. Rhythmic, like footsteps muffled by heavy carpet, coming from the hallway behind the kitchen. Every time Liam looked, the hallway was empty. "Everything okay?" Maya asked, noticing him glancing away. Her smile was bright, but her eyes looked tired, exhausted. "Yeah," Liam replied. "Just thought I heard something. This building must have thin walls." Maya's smile faltered for just a microsecond. "Yeah," she whispered. "The walls here? They're thinner than you think." After dinner, Maya went to the balcony to take a phone call. Liam offered to clear the table. He walked into the kitchen looking for the trash can. He opened a cabinet under the sink, but instead of a bin, he found something that made his blood run cold. Tucked behind the cleaning supplies was a pair of men's sneakers. They were filthy, caked in dried mud, and looked several sizes larger than Liam's. He felt a rush of adrenaline. Was Maya seeing someone else? Was an ex-boyfriend hiding here? He looked around the kitchen more carefully. On the counter near a decorative vent, he saw a small pile of ash. Fresh cigarette ash. He looked at the vent. It was one of those large, industrial-style grates near the floor. It wasn't screwed in. It was slightly ajar. Liam felt a sudden primal urge to leave. He walked back to the living room just as Maya was coming inside from the balcony. "Maya," he said, his voice trembling. "I think someone is in the apartment." Maya didn't scream. She didn't look surprised. She just turned very pale and sat down on the sofa. She put her face in her hands. "He won't let me leave, Liam," she whispered. "He's been here for 2 months. I met him on a date. Just one date. I let him stay the night because it was raining. And he never left. He knows my schedule. He knows when I sleep. He told me if I called the police, he'd kill my parents before they even reached the lobby." As she spoke, the vent in the kitchen hit the floor with a heavy clack. Liam spun around. Out of the darkness of the pantry crawled a man. He was skeletal, his hair matted, wearing a tattered hoodie. He wasn't carrying a knife. He was carrying a hammer. He didn't look like a monster. He looked like a man who had lived in the dark for too long. The man didn't attack. He just stood there, looking at Liam with a strange, possessive intensity. "You're late," the man said to Maya, ignoring Liam entirely. "I told you no guests after 9 p.m. We had a deal." Liam didn't wait to hear the rest. He grabbed Maya's hand and bolted for the front door. They heard the heavy thud of the hammer hitting the drywall right next to Liam's head. They scrambled into the hallway, slamming the heavy, reinforced door behind them. They didn't wait for the elevator. They ran down 42 flights of stairs, their hearts hammering against their ribs. By the time they reached the lobby and screamed for the security guard to call 911, the man was gone. When the police searched the apartment, they found the nest. It wasn't just in the vents. The man had carved out a space behind the walk-in closet. Inside, they found dozens of Polaroids of Maya sleeping. They found her spare keys, her social security card, and a notebook filled with 200 pages of his plans for their future wedding. But the most terrifying discovery was the man's identity. He wasn't a stranger. He was a professional frogger, a man who had been reported missing 3 years ago after a string of similar incidents in luxury apartments across the country. He was never caught that night. He disappeared into the service tunnels of the building. To this day, Maya lives in a different state, under a different name. And Liam? Every time he hears a creak in his floorboards or a sound in his vents, he wonders, is he truly alone? Or is he just the next guest? We've talked about stalkers and squatters. But what if the person you're dating doesn't want your heart? What if they want your life? This final story was sent to us by a man named David. It's a story about a 3-year relationship that ended in a way that is so chilling. David still hasn't been able to sleep with the lights off. This is the story of the longest goodbye in history. David met Elena on a rainy Tuesday at a bookstore. It was like a scene from a movie. They both reached for the same rare architecture book. She was elegant, spoke 3 languages, and seemed to have a deep interest in David's specific line of work: high-level cybersecurity. They dated for 2 years. She was the perfect partner. She helped him move into a new house. She knew all his passwords because they shared everything, and she even took over managing his digital life: emails, bills, social media, so he could focus on his career. He thought he was the luckiest man alive. He was planning to propose on their 3rd anniversary. The long goodbye began on a Monday. David went to log into his work email, but his password didn't work. He figured it was a glitch. Then his bank account was locked. When he called the bank, they asked for his mother's maiden name. He gave it. They told him it was incorrect. When he asked Elena about it, she was incredibly supportive. "Oh, honey, you've been so stressed lately. Maybe you're just forgetting things. Let me handle it," she'd say. And she would. Within an hour, everything would be back to normal, but then the people in David's life started acting strange. His mother called him, crying, asking why he had sent her an email saying he never wanted to see her again. David was confused. He'd never sent that email. He checked his sent folder. It was empty. Then his boss called. "David, we received your resignation letter. We're sorry to see you go." David hadn't resigned. He started to feel like a ghost in his own life. One night, David came home early. The house was dark. He heard Elena talking in the bedroom. Her voice was different. It wasn't the sweet, melodic tone he loved. It was sharp, professional, cold. He stood outside the door, his heart hammering against his ribs. "Phase 3 is complete," he heard her say into a phone. "The social isolation is 90% successful. The family believes he's having a breakdown. The company has accepted the resignation. I have full access to the mainframe credentials now. The real David is almost gone." David pushed the door open. Elena was sitting on the bed holding his laptop, but she wasn't alone. Standing in the corner of the room was a man David didn't recognize. The man was wearing David's clothes. He had the same haircut. From the back, in the dim light, he was David. Elena didn't look scared. She just looked at her watch. "You're early, David," she said. "We weren't supposed to say goodbye until Friday." David didn't ask questions. He turned and ran. He grabbed his car keys from the table, but when he got to his car, the key didn't fit the lock. He looked through the window. His car was filled with clothes and boxes that weren't his. He realized then what the long goodbye was. She hadn't just been dating him. She was an operative for a corporate espionage ring. Her job was to slowly delete David and replace him with a double, the man in the bedroom, who could walk into David's high-security job and steal the company's data without anyone ever knowing the real David was gone. David spent the night in a homeless shelter, terrified to call the police because Elena had already spent months making everyone think he was losing his mind. She had planted evidence of a mental breakdown in his medical records and emails. Eventually, David went to the police. But when they arrived at the house, it was empty. Not just empty of people, empty of everything. No furniture, no clothes, no Elena. Even the wallpaper had been stripped. It was as if he had never lived there. But the scariest part? The police ran David's fingerprints. They came back as invalid. Elena had used her access to his life to swap his biometric data in the national database. Legally, David does not exist. Somewhere out there, a man who looks like David is living his life, spending his money and working his job. And David? He's watching this video right now from a library computer, wondering if he'll ever get his name back. Be careful who you fall in love with, because sometimes they aren't looking for your heart. They're looking for your skin.
Subscribe for weekly true stories.